Today we'll be looking at the untold story of the UFC fighter Jon Bones Jones. Oh, and it's definitely one that'll take us on an emotional wave. So let's start with Jones's time in high school. Now, when he first started playing football, he was on the defensive line. If you're wondering how Jon got his nickname, well, because he was small, his coach thought it was really fitting to call him Bones. And it looks like Jones ended up keeping this for the rest of his career. He then started wrestling and quickly found out that he was very good at it. Because of how quickly and aggressively he took people down, he was able to finish them very quickly.
There you go, Doug.
He would eventually win his state wrestling championship and then go on to compete at Iowa Central Community College, where he would win the JUCO Wrestling National Championship. His parents wanted him to study criminal justice in college, but he quickly dropped out to pursue a career in mixed martial arts. Can you imagine? Jones's religious parents didn't want him to fight, so they told him to stop and become a pastor like his father. Jones didn't care about any of this though.
To eat around where we were living, so that's where the toughness came from. Most of the scars on my face are from my brothers.
He knew he had it in him to become a really good fighter, and he went for it. So, following his dreams, Jones joined the United States Kickboxing Association, and straight off the bat, he had a 6-0 record in just 3 months. Then Jones got a fight offer from the UFC with only 2 weeks' notice. His first fight was against Andres Guzmão at UFC 87.
Jones likes the throws. Nice trip. There's some Greco.
After that, he got to show off his skills on the biggest stage for mixed martial arts. Jones beat Guzmão by using takedown moves that no one had ever seen before, along with top-notch strikes, great elbows, and spinning leg kicks. Jones would then go on to win his next 2 fights, first by unanimous decision against Stephan Bonnar at UFC 94, and then by submission against Jake O'Brien at UFC 100, using a modified guillotine choke. But then he soon had a fight with Matt Hamill.
Jones likes the throws. Nice. Hamill's a double leg takedown kind of guy. Full mount trouble for Matt Hamill. Matt Hamill's in deep.
And this led to one of the most controversial decisions in UFC history. Now, Jones had been dominating Hamill for most of the first round. In the last 2 minutes of the round, Hamill was on his back, and Jones started throwing multiple 12-6 elbows at Hamill's nose. Keep in mind that this is against UFC rules because the blows can cause serious injuries. At first, the fight was stopped and Jones was given a penalty, but when Hamill dislocated his shoulder, the decision went in his favor.
This contest, due to intentional elbows, there's been a disqualification of Johnny Bones Jones. Therefore, the winner is Matt Hamill.
And he was deemed the winner. Even Dana White thought that Jones should not have been disqualified. According to him, Jones had never lost a fight in his life, and this was an unfair win for Hamill. He even said that they were trying to get rid of that one loss from Jones' record. The entire match was sad on Jones's part for sure. But then came a fight where he had a chance of getting the ultimate bounty, a UFC title belt. Yup, it seemed like Jones was easily beating Rua in their fight. And after Rua took a lot of hard hits to the head in the 3rd round, Jones landed a knee on Rua's jaw and ended the fight. This was when he actually won the UFC championship. He then defended his title against Quinton Jackson by choking him out in the 4th round with a rear naked choke.
Jon Jones has defended his UFC light heavyweight championship. He stops Quinton Ram.
This was a big thing, since Jones was the first person to submit Jackson. His next fight was scheduled to be against Lyoto the Madragon Machida, who would be his toughest opponent so far. It honestly looked like Machida had Jones figured out, but round 2 changed everything.
Trouble trying to finish this fight. He began. Jon Jones remains.
Jones beat Machida up, and when Machida was against the cage, Jones put him in a standing guillotine choke. Machida's whole body went limp, and it looked like the fight was over. Like Jackson, Jones gave Machida the first submission loss of his career. And just like that, James ended up with a 12-1 record in the UFC, and he was becoming the biggest star in the sport. At UFC 165, he was supposed to fight the Swedish superstar Alexander the Mauler Gustafsson to break the record.
John looked low and kicked high there. Oh, he hurt him with that one.
Well, that's what he's doing. He's switching up the kicks. He goes low.
Jones didn't know it, but the fight would be the hardest of his career, and it ended up being the best title fight in the UFC's light heavyweight division. But then it all went downhill from this point when it came to Jones's legacy. In fact, after 2014, Jones had the worst 3 years of his career. He was involved in a hit-and-run accident in April 2015, and this really put a dent in his career. The fact that the person he hit was pregnant made things worse. Luckily, neither the woman nor her baby were seriously hurt, but Jones was kicked out of the UFC and lost the belt he had held from March 2011 to April 2015. 6 months after the ban was put in place, it was lifted, and Jones was finally able to fight again. His first fight back was supposed to be against Daniel Cormier.
Some big bombs. Big John gives him every chance in the world.
But then he had to drop out of the fight because he hurt his foot. Jones then went on to fight Ovin St. Pro, whom he beat by unanimous decision. He was now the interim light heavyweight champion, but he would have to fight Cormier to become the official champion again. Then, right when he was supposed to fight Cormier at UFC 200, Jones was taken out of the fight because of alleged drug usage, and just like that, once again, his title was taken away, making him the first UFC fighter to lose a title twice. Jones said in an interview on Joe Rogan's podcast that he had taken an off-brand Cialis pill.
It's all on you, how you see me. You know what I mean? Some people may see me as like, wow, this guy's really confident. Seems like a nice guy.
Which made the test come back positive. He was banned for a year, but when he came back, Jones and Cormier were set to fight again. In July 2017, at UFC 214, the two finally fought. Jones won the fight after Cormier was knocked out in the third round by a brutal head kick and a barrage of punches to the head. Thankfully, Jones had won his title back. Then, just when you thought Jones's situation couldn't get any worse, it did. Jones failed his drug test after the fight, but it wasn't because he had taken Cialis this time. He tested positive for the anabolic steroid Turinabol, which is often used by baseball players like Jose Canseco and Sammy Sosa. Turinabol is similar to testosterone injections, but it works faster and better to build muscle. The fight between Cormier and Jones was changed from a winner-take-all to a draw, and Jones was suspended for 18 months. Jones went on Joe Rogan's podcast later and talked about what happened to him after all the controversy. In fact, he took responsibility for his mistakes and seemed ready to change going forward. He talked about how he really thought nothing could beat him, and because of that snarky attitude, he admitted he would get so drunk a week before every fight that he would literally pass out. But he knew it was time for him to change his ways and get back on the track he was on before. When he eventually came back from his suspension at UFC 232, Jones vs. Gustafsson 2 ended up being one of the most wanted rematches in the history of the sport. He seemed to have figured out what Gustafsson's leaks were while he was away. Taking that knowledge ahead of him, Jones knocked out Gustafsson in the third round, and he was once again the UFC light heavyweight champion. Ever since then, Jones has been doing great, and we're glad that he was able to come back from that dark period of his life. That's it for the untold story of the UFC fighter Jon Jones. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.